And if you have a Montana State ID card, listen up. Starting next week, that card may not be enough to enter a federal building or military installation across the country. And it's all because of something called the Real ID Act.
The act was passed by Congress in 2005 and implemented in 2013. It establishes a national standard for state-issued ID cards, but for years Montana has resisted the new requirements. Our Montana McLaughlin spoke with state officials today to find out what this change could mean for you, Montana.
Now, Steve, Laurel, the reason the Real ID Act is so controversial is because some state lawmakers say it's an invasion of privacy. That's because to get an ID that's compliant under the law, you have to submit private documents to the federal government, like a birth certificate. Now, Montana's been granted extensions on this rule for years, but now the feds are saying time is up. Monday, January 30th, 6 days. That's all the time you have left to access most federal buildings across the country with one of these. When asked if people knew that, Montanans were surprised.
This is brand new news to me.
Why? I'm not terribly thrilled with it.
You can tell when IDs are compliant with the law when they have a little star in the corner of the card. But as you can see in this example, Idaho shows non-compliant. And if you look at a Montana ID, we don't have that star. So we wanted to know where exactly you might be blocked from starting Monday. We called the federal courthouse in Missoula. They told us they're granting an exception. All federal courthouses in the state will still accept Montana IDs. But after another quick call to the Malmstrom Air Force Base in Great Falls, we found out the opposite. They told us you'll need a compliant ID like a passport to get inside the base come Monday. When we brought that news to Montanans, reactions were mixed.
I guess it's just a struggle because it does save people money. Like getting IDs is hard, but also getting a passport is way harder and way more expensive.
I think that we're all citizens, we're from here, that we don't need to have a special ID to get in these buildings. We should just be able to get into them with the IDs that we have.
And that's what the state attorney general's office believes. They told us state lawmakers have had a long history of opposing the Real ID Act on the basis of privacy.
We think that the solution here is for a fix at the federal level, whether it's all-out repeal or some kind of modification to the law that would bring Montana into compliance as it stands right now.
Sell says lawmakers are taking steps to do that. He says Senators Jon Tester and Steve Daines introduced federal legislation 2 weeks ago to repeal the Real ID Act. But for now, it's a waiting game. You might have also heard about Montana IDs being invalid at airports. Now that is in the works, but the state attorney general's office says it won't happen until January of next year. Live in Missoula, Montana McLaughlin, NBC Montana.
Thanks, Montana. But to make all of this more complicated, the Montana legislature passed a state law in 2007 saying that Montana wouldn't comply with the Real ID Act at all. So even if the Attorney General gave the green light for new IDs, a state law blocks that. And the AG's office says that there's no bill that they know of this legislative session that could change it.
The Department of Homeland Security reports that 25 states and Washington, D.C. are fully compliant with the Real ID law. 20 states have been granted extensions. Maine wasn't granted an extension, just like Montana. Washington